So Ruan Mei being the first limited harmony character. On release, she is going to be compared to Bronya. There is no way to avoid this. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. You know, a month ago we did talk about Ruan Mei, and one of the very first things I mentioned in the Ruan Mei video was that Bronya was going to be compared to Ruan Mei. And honestly, it's been a blast to see all of the community just go, head to head about which character is actually better, when in reality they're both about the same. For some teams, one is better, and for some other teams, the other one is better. But they're both characters that, for many players, is going to be a net positive for their account. And if you already have Bronya and you get Ruan Mei, well, now you have two Bronyas basically, except that other Bronya doesn't cleanse with her elemental skill. Yo, what up, Toshi here. Bronya is the queen of hypercarry. That's the title she remains with, and that's a title that will never be taken away from her. She has everything in her kit needed to function in a hypercarry team. Her elemental skill is the reason why she will never be replaced. You dispel a debuff, you push up the action forward of that ally, and you give them a fat damage buff. And this is on an elemental skill. This allows you to not have to worry about having a cleanser in a team party for hypercarry teams exclusively, because, well, the damage dealer you're going to be pushing up is going to be dispelling the debuff as well. So if they're CC'd by the enemy, well, they won't be CC'd anymore with Bronya's turn. Because Bronya pushes up the action forward of the damage dealer, you can literally run attack boots on that damage dealer for even more damage, because having speed with Bronya is pointless, because that character will be the one giving you the turns after all. And while Bronya scales really well with some light cones literally tailor-made for the character, with the damage bonus you already get from the elemental skill, you get a further damage bonus on top of that with past and future, or her 5-star light cone, but the battle isn't over. This is one of the best things about Bronya by far. You're giving so much damage bonus to that damage dealer, to where if you run an attack orb or HP orb on said damage dealer, the difference between the damage isn't going to be as much. And to be completely honest, if that's all Bronya gave with her elemental skill, then to me she would still be a very strong character, because that's all you really need for a hypercarry damage dealer. And to be honest, if that's all Bronya gave in her kit for the damage dealer, then I think she would still be an amazing character. But the fact of the matter is she gives more, even more than just that. You give a further 10% damage bonus to all allies by literally just existing, because her name is Bronya. On top of that damage bonus you get goes up to 100% for the damage dealer. You give a fat attack increase to the damage dealer and crit damage, and the crit damage scales higher based on Bronya's own crit damage. So that means a number of things. If you are using Yukong in the same party, or if we receive other characters in the future that also buff crit damage, that means Bronya's crit damage she gives to the ally is going to be even higher. Yukong gives 58% at level 8, and depending on the level of your ultimate for Yukong and the traces is going to be even higher. So this crit damage on top of the crit damage Bronya already has in her kit means that she's going to give even more crit damage to the damage dealer. So Bronya is the queen of hypercarry. She has a kit that is constantly going to scale the later we go into the game for Honkai Star Rail, and for any damage dealer in the game for the most part, she has a workaround kit to function with said damage dealer. Now there is some damage dealers that are able to utilize Bronya better than other ones, and those damage dealers have a net positive in terms of their DPS, because they're able to utilize one of the best characters in the game. But as we reach further and further into the game, you will unlock Eidolons for the character, which solves a lot of her issues and makes her a much better character alongside said damage dealers. Eidolon 1 helps with the skill point management. This makes her a much more flexible character in your team comps. Eidolon 2 allows you to give a speed boost to the damage dealer. For some characters, this is godsend. If you have Seal, this allows you to not only have to worry about speed less, but if you have Eidolon 0 Seal and you have her best assault light cone, then you'll have that speed you need to hit the 160 you need for not only the best assault light cone, but the planar set to increase your overall damage. Eidolon 4 allows Bronya to be a very nice character to pair alongside Topaz, because this not only allows Topaz to push up the action forward of Numbi with the follow-up attack, but that means you're 2 steps closer to getting Eidolon 6, which becomes an even better synergistic duo alongside Topaz, because you increase the elemental damage bonus of that character for an additional turn, which means Numbi is going to retain those buffs whenever Numbi takes Numbi's turn, and the same goes for Jing and any other character with backloaded damage. So Bronya right now is a great character, the best character in the game, and as we go further into Honkai Star Rail, her value is going to increase depending on how unlucky or lucky you are, depending on how you want to look at it. Because losing your 50-50 to Jetpart is one thing, but losing your 50-50 to Bronya is a very nice thing, because you get a very strong future-proof support character. That's a plus in my opinion. Bronya is best installed in every single hypercarry team in the game, and with said Eidolon, she becomes an even better alongside other damage dealers. For instance, Daniel. Daniel's a character that functions way better with Bronya if you have not only Bronya's first Eidolon, but also if you have Bronya's best 5-star light cone, which gives a skill point after using the ultimate. And for a character like Daniel, having that extra skill point and extra skill point from not only Eidolon 1 but her light cone allows Daniel to have more skill points to work with. So in teams like this that wouldn't otherwise work with Eidolon 0 Bronya, well, later on, this will be a team that can actually work with the character. And some of the said weaknesses Bronya has with some characters becomes even less exaggerated. We take into consideration you have ways of being able to lap your allies to not only save even more on skill points, but to generate more energy on the character. So all of a sudden, Bronya becomes a much better character in said team comps with the more investment you have and the more Bronyas you have. I use Bronya with Seal right now, and to be honest, if I had Eidolon 6, I would be using Bronya alongside Seal even more. The reason being is because Seal can retain those extra buffs for an additional turn, allowing Seal to not only take more turns and not have to worry about Bronya being slower than my Seal, but I'm able to function in a team where I need to have buffs that last longer than one turn. That's all that really matters for Seal. In some teams where the character is slow as dirt like Clara, Bronya works really well because those buffs that Bronya applies to the whole team, the damage bonus and the attack and crit damage increase that scales really high, is going to be all that Clara needs, and Clara can retain those buffs way longer than Seal because Clara's base speed is 90, which means, well, if you don't have any speed increases on the character, we're comparing a 90 base speed character to a character that can go up to 160 plus speed. Bronya is a character that seems like a must use with Jinglu at times because she gives an additional turn to Jinglu, which is very nice for a character that also gets an additional turn. So an extra turn from a character allows Jinglu to put out even more damage into the field. And since Bronya's buffs don't have any names on it, well, the elemental damage bonus counts for every element in the game. So Jinglu and Bronya is one of the best pair alongside Pela in today's meta. Bronya with more Eidolons is a very nice character to use on Kafka, because not only do you save on skill points, but you also take into consideration that those damage buffs don't have a name on it. And since Bronya gives an attack increase as well, the attack and the elemental damage bonus is going to scale with Kafka's dots, because that's all dots need in order to increase their overall damage. These two characters together, when you're into the late game, can work really well together. You have to take into consideration that you're only using Kafka in a hypercarry team at that point. Bronya feels like a must-use alongside Blade. That's because she allows Blade to stack his passive quicker, allows his character to put out more damage because of the elemental damage bonuses, and the crit damage is so good for this character. And now Argenti. Bronya being used alongside Argenti means that Argenti is able to generate more energy, is able to take more turns, and he's able to dish out more damage and stack his crit rate passive. So Bronya alongside Argenti to increase his overall damage, and since he's a character that wants to function in hypercarry teams anyways, Bronya becomes one of his best supporters. Bronya is a character that has not gotten worse, she's only gotten better. I compare Bronya to Silverwolf because in my opinion, these two characters have only gotten better through time. As we go into the future and you put more investment into your Bronya, maybe get her even faster, and maybe you have more Eidolons for the character because you lose your 50-50, or you get her from your 300 selector pity again. Well, that means you'll have a much better Bronya for your damage dealers. So my honest opinion, Bronya is the only character here that I would consider to stand the test of time. I do understand we're comparing a 5-star character to the 4 stars here, but to show you how much of a difference Bronya is compared to all these other characters, well, as of right now, we don't have any other character that cleanses and buffs the ally with an elemental skill. We have Ting Yun who gives energy to the team, but Huo gives energy also with an attack buff. And we're going to receive characters in the future that also give attack buffs and energy as well furthermore, because that's a concept that Hoyoverse isn't scared to implement more into the game. And we're already receiving ways of increasing energy regeneration rate anyways, so Ting Yun is a character that will be phased out eventually. And then Yukong is just very good for imaginary teams, but since Yukong is a tailor-made support, she's not as flexible as Bronya. And Asta is seeming more like a tailor-made support. As we reach further into the late game for Honkai Star Rail, we're receiving characters like Ruan Mei that pretty much does everything Asta wants to do but better. And then Hanya is a character that works really nice in dual DPS teams. But if you're getting Ruan Mei, then you probably won't ever use Hanya ever again, to be honest. But Bronya is the only character I can say for certain that is going to stand the test of time when it comes to power creep, because she has a kit that is fundamentally impossible to power creep unless you make a character that literally does what she does. They would have to make a character that pushes up the action forward of the damage dealer, and they would have to make sure that character also has a cleanse, because if that character doesn't have a cleanse and a push up and buffs the damage of said damage dealer, well, then you would just always use Bronya. So again, if they were to make a better Bronya, then that would be direct power creep. That's the only way to make Bronya a less appealing character. Otherwise, you have to go the route of making characters like Ruan Mei, which is a direct side grade to Bronya in hyper carry, but a better and more appealing character in dual DPS teams because of those buffs that Bronya has compared to Ruan Mei. And with that being said, Ruan Mei is a character that is amazing as well, but I don't consider Ruan Mei to be better than Bronya. These two characters are equal in my honest opinion because, well, Bronya can do essentially what Ruan Mei wants to do in those dual DPS teams, but you have to be more selective with how you use the character in said teams. But when it comes to hyper carry, Bronya dusts Ruan Mei in hyper carry teams. And let's say you can't use Ruan Mei in those hyper carry teams as well, because Ruan Mei will still function there relatively nice as well. Well, there's one last thing you take into consideration. Why not just use two Bronyas together? I mean, you've already used Bronya and Soul Wolf alongside each other in some teams. Why not use Bronya and Ruan Mei in those teams as well? Then you'll have the most buffing capabilities you can have for your damage dealers, and all of a sudden you have one of the best teams, if not the best team in the game. Because I truly do believe for a lot of teams, Bronya and Ruan Mei is going to be a must for hyper carry. That's if we're talking about meta. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Obviously, I play a ton of Honkai Star Rail. I mean, like, it goes with showing I make videos every single day on this game. So honestly, this just comes from my experience of just playing the game every single day. And honestly, I am pretty burned out because I play the game consistently, but it just goes to show you how dedicated I am to making sure that I give you all the best information I can possible. And with that being said, I play a lot of gacha games also, so I try to look for patterns in this game compared to those games. And as of right now, I have not seen a character in those other games that can be compared to Bronya, because Bronya, in my opinion, should have been nerfed harder for release if we wanted to have a character that isn't as, I would say account changing as she is. Ruan Mei is a character that's going to be amazing, and to be honest, me like other players, we're just going to use both characters together. That's the video here. Thank you for watching. I hope you got something out of this, and have a nice rest of your day. Peace.